All right.
I know, right?
Chapter 6 was like, I think the most depressing chapter I've read since the I'm serious. You know, when she did the 10-year with the 10th anniversary edition, how she had the introduction
Right.
based on what had happened. But
Right.
you know, just reading and I'm expecting to get to the end and get some answers.
Yes.
And it's
Uplifting comment, right. Where we can
right.
go.
You right find it so depressing. But I think what was really interesting with how she opened it up, talking about civil rights organizations and
Mhm.
how they haven't adjusted to the times and the current realities that we
Right.
have, but
Right.
how we can't expect them to really be these advocates for helping to end mass incarceration, because when you look at the history of the organizations, how their strategy has only been to defend those
Mm.
that they felt like were wrong, but with squeaky clean backgrounds. And that's
Right.
not the majority
Right.
of the people that are incarcerated. How did you feel about
Yeah.
that?
I mean, I was kind of surprised because I didn't know the names. Like I had heard rumblings about, Rosa Parks not being the first to refuse to give up her seat. And so then when they were talking about the first girl, I can't remember her name. I mean, I have to open up
The
my.
15-year-old.
It was, yeah, it wasn't was the other one Mary or something like that? Let me see. I think I can find it
I know
relatively.
one of them was 15.
Yeah, one of them was 15. And
Let me see. Oh yeah, her name was Claudette Colvin,
okay.
15-year-old.
Yeah, I must further back than I thought. Yeah, well, okay, so she talked about her, right, Claudette, and how they
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to use her. Oh, here we go. I finally found it. Yeah,
Way
so
too.
she was the first one to refuse to give up her seat. They said both of them were arrested for refusing to give up their seats on Montgomery segregated buses. But I guess hers, they said advocates worried that her immoral conduct, the first one, I guess, because she got pregnant by a much older man,
Right.
and so they thought that that wouldn't look good in terms of trying to use her as example of this being wrong. And then they cited the second example with Mary Louise Smith, but she had a father. So it wasn't even her. She had a father who they was rumored to be an alcoholic. And I was just like, oh wow, that's interesting. That whole idea that almost like you're not deserving of your rights anymore, if unless you are a perfect shining representation of the black race. You know what I mean? Like if you're not, then you wonder like how much did that even that mentality trickle down in a sense of
Right.
only those of you that are perfect and spotless are worthy of a seat at the table, and if you can't prove that you don't have anything that you do that's wrong or bad or unsavory in your family, I mean, that X's out so many people,
Mm-hmm.
so like if your parent happens to have a drug addiction or something like that, does that mean that you should have to stand? Now you aren't deserving of a seat because your father
Right.
isn't a exemplary citizen. So I thought that was interesting that that, I mean, and then too, I understand it, in terms of choosing. I guess Rosa Parks was someone they knew people would more readily identify with, I guess, or have empathy for, because she had the
Yeah.
religious background.
Yeah. It was funny to me because about the implications of this.
Right.
And I really didn't even think about, but you start thinking about all these different cases where this has been true. And then you look at how the response is from the white community. It doesn't matter to the majority of them that these people's backgrounds are squeaky clean. We see even now, it's like, oh, well, they shouldn't have been resisted,
Right.
right? You got this squeaky
Right.
clean
Right.
background, but you
Right.
shouldn't have been resisting, or you
Right.
in the wrong place at the wrong time. Sucks to be you type mentality. So it's funny that
Right.
they're, trying to evoke these emotions out of white people when it doesn't really matter to most of them
Them.
anyway. They're going to find a reason to
Right.
justify this happening to people.
Right. 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 Yeah. So maybe it doesn't really make a difference, but I guess I don't know if people would have celebrated these other young women as much. Rosa Parks has kind of a very cemented and celebrated place, I think, within the
Right,
Black community,
right.
and being revered as someone who, just started the whole. I mean, it's so funny because the spin of it was so deep that I never even knew there were these two other. I mean, not. I guess it would be silly to think that she was the only one that refused to give up her seat, but that's kind of how it got played out to me, and and how it was taught that she was the first.
Mm-hmm.
And even like you kind of feel like she had this more courage. She was the first to do it. So I don't know. I don't know.
And I think it, for me, that perpetuates this situation
Mm-hmm.
that we have where people feel like some lives are more important than others. It's like,
Right.
oh, but for them deciding they wanted to commit this crime, that was their fault. Look at these
Mm-hmm.
upstanding people who have these squeaky clean backgrounds. Like
Right.
that's pretty much where
Yeah.
we are right.
Yeah, it did uphold that idea that if you aren't perfect, and I guess just the whole mentality toward the criminal is just like
Mhm.
once you commit a crime, then you are not really worthy of much. Like,
Right.
because I thought it was interesting too when he talked about the civil rights movement, when she tied it to the civil rights lawyers and the movement, and how even that as they took off, they became, they also started distancing themselves from the criminal,
Hmm.
and kind of being like,
Hmm.
she talked about them wanting to litigate and be able to win and all. So it seems like they kind of got buddy buddy with maybe some people in the system, or I mean, I'm not exactly sure, but it sounded like they also kind of started working within the system to, I guess, affect some kind of minimal whatever change, but not really kind of really going at it like we're going to take this down and we're going to really champion the rights of these individuals. It seems like it became more like softly done in terms of just not really wanting to make waves and just kind of, you know what I mean, like maybe broader issues instead of like the actual people.
Right.
I'm not.
It seems like they became very self-serving.
Yeah.
Um, really not taking on the voices of the people anymore, but the goals they wanted to achieve.
Right. Right. So I thought that was interesting, and that was just more depression. I mean, I have to admit, the tone of the book, you just start getting kind of depressed. Like you
Right.
want to feel like there's some kind of, positivity or some kind of spin that she's going to throw in there that'll make you feel like this could be changed or this could be turned around or it's not going to stay this way. And then, I mean, you'll probably lay it out in your outline when we go further in, but it just felt like that wasn't what was happening.
Right. That was pretty interesting because it's like, it's especially how thick this book is.
Yeah, it's pretty thick. It's pretty dense.
Hoping to find the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow type
Right,
situation.
right.
So it's one of those things. But the other thing I found interesting in this first section was when and it's kind of evident now when we had the
Mhm.
whole, and we still have the election shenanigans going on right now, but
Right.
how people are putting so much emphasis on the economy and
Mm-hmm.
talking about jobs and the employment statistics. And the one thing, and it's like one sentence, and I really wish um, she had really pressed on this a lot. But she says on page 284, one reason so many people have a false impression of the economic well being of African Americans as a group is that poverty and unemployment statistics do not include people who are behind bars.
Oh, right. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that line
So
was
you're never getting an accurate representation, period.
right of
Even if
anything.
you go all the way back. Yeah, for them never
Right,
to be included in that number.
right,
It's never been an accurate
right,
representation. Like she basically said, they're erased from the nation's economic picture,
right,
which is
right,
insane.
right. It is insane. I mean, I think, and it's so erased that we don't even think about it anymore. Or, I mean, I never thought about it.
Right.
I never thought about the fact that they're not counted and that they're such a large percentage of people are in there for them just not to have
Exactly.
any, you know, in terms of like joblessness or unemployment. It means those numbers are just way skewed for especially members of the Black community. I mean, if that we have that many Black men in prison and they're not being counted in the unemployment statistics, then we are even doing worse than we thought we were doing. And usually that's not that great.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it's crazy because there's that's not
Uh,
worked because it is, slavery. They're worked to death making sometimes clothing, making license plates and other
right.
things.
Right.
And
Right.
it's like, oh, I can't put this on my resume. I had a job doing this in prison. Like
Right.
it's
Right.
it's crazy.
Yeah. It's such a hard thing, I think though too, because
DeAndre?
What's going on? I'm sorry that I'm late. I had to get off. I got off the wrong exit on 75. I shouldn't have got off. I actually shouldn't. I don't. I shouldn't have got on 75. Yoshunda, and I'll tell y'all this story much later. But I should not have gotten off 75. I shouldn't have gotten on 75 coming from Stockbridge. That's where I was coming from.
No,
oh,
not
I,
ever in life.
I
oh,
know, but
You better take
you
your
know the
time.
talking about.
there's a reason why I did that, and the reason goes back
Oh,
to when I was 20 years old. We don't have time to. I don't have time to explain, but
okay, that's fine. We'll talk about it later. We can talk about it later. But what do you think about DeAndre? About them not including the numbers and the statistics for unemployment and poverty for people that are behind bars?
I think what I think about that is just like during slavery, the three-fifths compromise, how men and women were counted as only three-fifths of a human being. I think this is a similar.
uh,
I think the comparison between men not being counted part of the population while being in prison and working for free labor, just like black people during slavery was counted as three-fifths of a human being. I think the comparison between the two are strikingly similar because we know the purpose for which the prison system was created. It was to rebirth and reincarnate slavery.
uh,
That is true.
wow.
That is very true.
And and
It's
what's
very
so frightening about it is how it's working, kind of so efficiently in a way. And it's become so efficient and so removed, I think, from society in terms of even where they place prisons and the fact that we don't really have to see them. I think the only
mm-hmm.
prison that stands out for me has been like always Alcatraz, because of course it's the old, famous prison in San Francisco and the location in the water or surrounded by water. And then San Quentin, which when you would come across the Bay Bridge, you would kind of see it in the distance, but know
Mm-hmm.
that it was just kind of far enough away that you didn't really have to think about it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, she spoke about that about them
Yeah.
being in really white rural areas. And I got,
Right.
let me tell you,
Right.
because my dad, he spent the majority of my life he went to prison when I was like in the 5th grade.
Mm,
And he was there for like 12 years. But all of the
wow.
times that we ever had to visit, whenever he was at a different prison, it was always in the middle of nowhere. Like it would literally
Right.
take us like 3 hours to drive there. We have to get up super early in the morning. You have to
Right.
make sure you had snacks in the car and a full tank of gas, because God forbid you run
Right.
out of
Right.
gas in one of those
Little towns.
Yeah.
in the middle of nowhere. And I
Right.
remember when my younger brother got into some trouble and we had to go pick him up when he was being released. He was in some remote place in Georgia I'd never heard of. And when we rode through this town, they had one of the slave transportation carriages on display in the middle of the town there. And we went to pick him up, and he didn't even try to change his clothes or anything. He was just like, get us the hell out of here. This is not a
Right.
place you want to be. He
Right.
talked about how they called them boy, every opportunity. And
Right.
it's like one of those sundown towns we just didn't want to be caught in. And we're leaving, and we come up on this Black family that has like we couldn't stop the help because it was getting dark and we didn't want to be there. Like that
Right.
was one of those situations where they put them in those places for a reason. They
You're
really
Yeah.
not
do.
talking. You're not
Yeah.
talking about Milledgeville, are you, Yoshunda?
Oh, no, no, no. So when my dad was he spent the majority of his time in Reedsville,
Okay.
Georgia. And
Mm.
then my brother, this other place, I would have to ask him. I can't even remember. I had never heard of this place before. I can't even remember the name of it. But yeah,
Uh,
it was
way
out
upstate
there.
little
It was
town.
out.
Was it an actual physical carriage that they
Yeah.
had in town?
Oh yeah. Oh
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And on
Oh,
display in
wow.
the middle of the town.
Wow.
In the middle
Wow.
of the town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta turn this AC off.
But it's the reason for that, psychologically. And even logistically, with you really don't have any hope of escaping because you're in the middle of nowhere and you'll be easily caught.
Yeah, if you tried to
So
escape.
yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
That's scary. That's scary, definitely.
Um, the
Yeah.
other thing she talks about, and this is what Nandi, you and DeAndre were referring to, is that like slavery
Mm-hmm.
in picking cotton and everything else, back in the day, that's how ingrained the prison industrial complex and mass incarceration has become in our economy. Um, how big of a business it has been for not just the economic and the political system is what she's talking about. And I
Mm-hmm.
put this in quotations just to quote where she says on page 288, it says, even beyond private prison companies, a whole range of prison profiteers must be reckoned with if mass incarceration is to be undone, including phone companies that gouge families with loved ones behind bars by charging them exorbitant rates to communicate with their loved ones, gun manufacturers that sell taser guns, rifles, and pistols to prison guards and police, private healthcare providers contracted by the state to provide typically abysmal healthcare to people in prison, the US
Mm.
military, which relies on prison to soldiers in other countries, corporations that use prison labor to avoid paying decent wages, and the politicians, lawyers, and bankers who structure deals to build new prisons, often in predominantly white rural communities, deals that often promise far more to local communities than they deliver. So all of these corporate and political interests have a stake in the expansion, not the elimination of the system of mass incarceration.
Oh, wow.
Deeply ingrained in economics and the political system.
Definitely.
Right. And the job, I mean, I don't know what page that was on, but when she was talking about the kind of the privatizing of prisons and the jobs that were created by it, and how like if I think she said 4 out of 5 prisoners were released, like over 1 million jobs would be lost. Um, I'm not sure if that's exactly the right number, but I think it is. But it just kind of showed how here it is. Yeah, she said if 4 out of 5 people were released from prisons, far more than 1 million people could lose their jobs. And so it's not just it's now it's like you said, when you were talking about how entrenched it is in all these different economies and businesses that are depending on this prison system continuing in terms of
Hmm.
profit and into livelihood for people. So there's like an invested interest in kind of maintaining the system as it is. I probably would
Right.
just even be unspoken. People wouldn't say, well, I don't want things to change because then I might lose my job. Like, you know what I
Right.
mean? But that's in there. And I think the people that are working at the prisons, clearly people are going to think they have more value than the criminals who are coming out.
That is true.
Give me
DeAndre?
another.
What's going on? Oh, well, you wanna know what my thoughts were on that?
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
'Cause I
You got
caught.
the male perspective.
I was highlighting. All right, I'll finish highlighting it. Well, and I see what you said on page 288. The fact of the matter is, we have to go back, and it's funny because I was listening to an interview with the guys that's on FSN. Now, I do not watch any television whatsoever. Sometimes I'm just on YouTube, just browsing and looking at different stuff. But
Right.
I happen to come across an interview on YouTube from Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp, the guys that have the show Skip and Shannon on FSN. And he was just talking about how racism is so ingrained in America and because for one, the America is painted as this picture that that the country was built for freedom, and it was built for freedom, and it was built with the intention of people being free. But the reality is that it wasn't. And I think last year and even this year, some people, I think the New York Times was working on the 1619 project, which is going to uncover and tell the truth about why how this country came about. And because, as you know, slaves first appeared in this country 401 years ago, to be exact, in 1619. And from the beginning, that capitalistic system was built, and it was built on the back of slaves. And when slavery ended, or well, when Abraham
Evolve.
Lincoln, yeah, when it evolved, yeah, when Abraham Lincoln decided that he's going to just go ahead and end it all together for the purpose of saving the Union, not for saving the slaves, because he didn't really care whether or not we were free, which is something that I wish I would have known growing up, or I wish they would have told me, but I know why they didn't. But to get to the point, it's just interesting. You have to study systems and see how systems work, because there's a system for education, there's a system for economics, and there's a system for politics. And there's most definitely a system for businesses. The businesses with the best systems generally are the top companies in the world. Just look at the systems that McDonald's have, Burger King. If you buy a franchise, you don't really have to do the work. You just have to learn the system and hire the people to work it. And from that point on, the system will work as it was designed to work.
Right.
And that is the same thing with this. The only way black people can get out of this, the only way we can get out of the demarginalization that we're going through and the oppression, is if we not only learn how systems work, but begin to create a system of our own. Because until we do that, the system will continue to work itself. We often say that the system is broken, but it's not broken. It's working the way the founding fathers created it and intended for it to work.
Right.
So
Right. And
that is my thought on this, and pretty
I
much the
agree.
entire book. But go ahead.
No, I was saying that I agree. I just in with all the conversations on Facebook, and I've said a lot about people who claim they're for Black liberation and Black freedom, and I'm like, how do you destroy a system without knowing how it operates? How does that come about? We could talk about building our own, but I had a lot of questions because there are a lot of people that believe in being sovereign and stuff like that. And I've always tried to figure out how that was supposed to work if you separate yourself completely. Just some ideas when they were like, oh, we don't need documents connecting ourselves, to the United States government and blah blah blah. And even when I was looking at the uh the people in Georgia who bought those acres of land, wanting to have their own city, basically created by Black people.
I met
I'm
that
like,
young lady too a while back.
right. I'm like, I get it. But what happens when you step foot outside of that community? You still are faced with the same issues, right? You may be safe within that community, but outside of there, if you wanted to travel to visit someone in another town, in another city, in another state, you're still faced with dealing with those with the ops, basically. And I was just wondering how it would work. Are people talking about advocating for buying an island somewhere and being completely disconnected from interacting with Caucasian people? Are they
You breaking up. Uh-oh. You seem to have frozen.
She might have got kicked out.
Oh Lord.
Well, no, she's still in here. It's the three of us. Last time she got kicked out, and then oh, see, there she went. She'll probably have to come back in. I think I think sometimes her internet connection downstairs gets kind of dicey.
Hmm.
Yeah, we had like a low turnout tonight. First, it was just me and Shonda, just like, where is everybody?
Yeah, I intended to get on, but I was coming from my mom's house, and the distance that I did was required for me to get back to where I live. I could have taken some back roads. I just decided, well, let me get on the interstate, and
Yeah.
I shouldn't have done that because it's literally 15 minutes max, probably 15 to 20 minutes maximum, but
To drive.
the 8 to 15 minutes minimum back. Now, if I take just back roads,
Right.
you know,
How long
but
did it take on the interstate?
it probably when I left, it was 11:36. When I got into the Zoom book
Mm-hmm.
club chat, it was 12:15.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it kind of
Almost
like
30
double.
minutes.
Yeah, kind of doubles
No,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was taking that long.
The
So
freeway will do that.
yeah, but to answer Yoshunda's question regarding that, because of the people she's been listening to on social media about Black liberation and how to break a system that how to break a system that seems unbreakable, at least to us, because we've been the burden bearers and historical victims of that system.
Right.
Yeah, there's a lot of work first and foremost that needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of work that we have to do within ourselves because, and I've said this before, a lot of people in our own communities are just as unaware and just
Yeah.
sleep and just asleep to these issues as people in not only the white community but other communities as well.
Right.
Um,
Right.
So a lot of people are going to have to get themselves educated. There have been conversations I've had to have with other black people, and
Yeah.
if you are the type of person that does no research, not that you don't intend to do it, but that you see things as they are, you're pretty much going to call it how you see it. But your current awareness is lacking the very understanding as to why things are the way they are.
Right.
And as long as your awareness and your outlook is like that, you're never going to see the the actual problem, at least not from the standpoint of what caused this problem. And yeah, you may say, well, yeah, man, slavery was a long time ago, and I understand that, but we need to move forward. Well, how do a group of people who went through that kind of oppression for 200 plus years, how do you move forward when you never got any type of counseling, any type of healing, any type of treatment? You had to keep it bottled up inside, and you had to learn how to cope with it and deal with it. What is the
Right.
result from that? If I don't know if any one of you have ever been sexually assaulted or raped. I don't know if you've ever been taken advantage of. God forbid if you have. But
Oh, I
any
have. Thank you.
well, thank God.
Yeah.
But if you know anybody that's ever gone through any abuse of any kind, that's not something they can just get over. Even if it
Right.
didn't happen, even if it did not happen to you, it happened to someone in your lineage. And if
Mm-hmm.
certain things are not dealt with in your family, it does pass down to different generations. That is
Right.
what
You talk
a lot of
about kind of
people,
like the trauma of it.
yeah, the traumatic
Mhm.
experiences, that's what a lot of people, many of which in our community, do not understand. And I know I'm not supposed to get frustrated explaining certain things to certain people, but people, I cannot, you can't help someone if they're not willing to help themselves. And what I mean by that is this: if a person is not willing to learn, there's not much you can teach them. If they're determined to learn, then you don't have to teach them that much. There's a quote that says, if you're not willing to learn, no one can help you. But if you're determined to learn, no one can stop you.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people, for whatever reason, do not see the value in reading. They don't see the value in having to educate themselves. And it's great if you go to college, but the truth of the matter is, college can only take you so far in terms of education. And the truth of the matter is, school is more indoctrination than education. I don't know if you
Right.
ever read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which is something I would definitely recommend. And
Uh,
also, oh, I recommend Think and Grow Rich, a Black Choice by Dennis Kimbrough of Clark, Atlanta.
uh,
I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
I haven't.
What Napoleon Hill said in one of the chapters, and I think it was on specialized knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
What he said was that no, it wasn't specialized knowledge. He was said that no, it was a person of education. You have to look at education from the Latin derivative, which is educo. Educo means to draw out and to develop from within.
Mm-hmm.
So definitively, an educated individual is an individual that can draw out and develop from within the God-given gifts, talents, dreams, and ideas and manifest them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not someone that can acquire a bunch of knowledge and take some tests and pass them and then forget about it until he takes another test.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that speaks back to what even Yoshunda was saying in terms of us having to being from another place and lineage, and that is so complicated that we don't even know exactly all of who we are. That's why I think we've had so many names, Negro, colored, African American. I mean, we're so many things. The Native American is very downplayed, and I'm sure that's a big part of our history too. But I'm saying we're within this system that's not really of us, but we're being forced to work within it. And so we're told, okay, you go to college to get a degree, and a lot of jobs require these degrees or these things to get. It's like I look at it like hoops, right? So to be truly knowledgeable or intelligent, you have to be willing to seek knowledge on your own. But I do think that there's value in also learning how to play their game and going through these hoops, because that's all they
It
are. It's
is.
like, to go take this test to prove that you have a critical thinking skills, or that you can learn vocabulary, or that you know how to write well. And these aren't bad things to know how to do. And knowing that college is kind of like just this big hoop that you have to jump through to try to get maybe to your next level, or maybe you don't need it. Maybe you have the social skills or the people skills to network and get your thing going. You have a business idea and you don't need the degree, you know. But I think we're all trying to work within this system. And sometimes it's hard. Like you said, if someone's buying land and buying houses and wanting to build this little Black community, this utopia, in a sense, where they're safe and they can promote their own ideals and stuff, they still have to leave it at some point. They're still in America. You know what I mean? They're still subject to, if America is attacked by someone or something, they're still in the country and considered Americans. So I think it's hard to figure out exactly how to navigate that. I mean, I agree with what you're saying about needing to be educated to a different level. Like, your education should come from a desire to be your best self and to pursue the knowledge that interests you, and that you feel called to know.
Yeah, and this is going back to what Yoshunda mentioned before, the internet cut off for no reason. But I just
My internet is horrible right now. My internet is horrible. I don't know why.
But Yoshunda, and I'm gonna address what you said, Danny. But Yoshunda, what you were saying prior to your horrible internet connection was that the conversation you were having on social media with Black liberation and Black empowerment with a lot of the people, and what does it look like in terms of building our own community, or in terms of, I forgot part of what you were saying, but I caught a little bit of it. But I would just say that, because as you both know, this is
I was just saying that
go ahead. Oh Lord.
It's just people don't sorry. The idea makes sense. It's just that people don't understand that it's not that simple. It's a much more complex issue.
Yeah, it is, because of systemic racism, and not only that, because we really do not have an economic power base that we need to pull it off. Even though there are a lot of people from our community that have successfully been able to figure out what the vast majority of our people are haven't been able to figure out, it's just not enough. We're still outnumbered, because according to the Economic Policy Institute, the white man's net worth is over $200,000. The Latin man's at 17,000. Blacks is at 1,700. And at the rate we're going, it's gonna take the amount of time that was almost equivalent to the amount of time we was in slavery. They say 225 years, but we were, I think, enslaved for close to 250, and even longer than that if you count Jim Crow and mass incarceration.
Mm-hmm.
But from day one, we have been behind generations. So it's like, that's why I say it's multi-generational work, because it's gonna take some time.
Yeah.
It may or may not happen in our lifetimes. It depends on how long we live.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll just say that, how because I was having a conversation with one of the guys, and you know who I'm talking about, Yoshunda, that we saw at one of the committee meetings, and he was just talking about how we 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 have to work on meeting our people where they are, so that they can begin to awaken and see what's going on. And maybe that's true. I mean, nah, it's definitely true. But at some point, we have to understand what's truly important and what isn't. I mean, we
Mm.
we can't keep being an entertainment driven culture. You have any idea how much money, how much time, how much energy, and how much effort we spend just on entertaining ourselves, compared to the amount of time, energy, effort, and money that we spend in educating ourselves?
Yep.
It's really
There,
vast difference.
there is a such thing as the EVE ratio. I don't know if you two ladies have heard of this, but sociologists and psychologists to tell you this, but the education versus entertainment ratio states that for every dollar a person spends on education, they spend X amount of dollars on entertainment. Now, the average
Mm-hmm.
EVE ratio in America, yeah, is 1 in 50. In our community, is 1 in 200. That means for every dollar we spend on education, we spend at least $200 on entertainment. If you count going to the movies, going to the club, going shopping, going out with your boo, or going out with your girls, or going out with your guys, or whatever the case may be, going to a local sporting event. And at some point, we have to understand that if this issue that's currently at large, if we keep doing what we're doing, it's going to remain at large.
Regardless, yeah. Honestly, because we're focusing our energies and resources into the wrong thing, which, she talks about how we're allowing these different organizations to pick and choose certain cases that they want to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
We should be focusing our energy on mass mobilization. Need to be using our resources and our money to fund uh, different types of efforts where it comes to not only people who've never been incarcerated, but the people who have, giving them a platform to speak and engage, and all of us understanding that is bigger than us. But even the poor white people that get railroaded just like the black people do, all have to come together to better that particular cause in those efforts.
Mm-hmm. I did want to say that it was really kind of funny to me that I haven't had a chance to watch it because our schedules are so crazy. And when I get up at 5:30, I'm just a wreck by this time. But anyway, I'm just a wreck. I'm like, oh God, why? Um, but a friend of mine that I went to journalism school with, his name is Chris Jenkins, and he worked for the Washington Post as a reporter for a number of years. He is Black, he's from New York, and he just did a documentary that's getting some buzz that is called Trapped: Cash Bail in America. I put the link to the page in our chat box. They have like a
Mm-hmm.
preview video on YouTube. But basically, I guess it's about that. I mean, I think it's about the prison system. I think it's about the bail system in California, and it's kind of rooted around this Prop 25, which I don't really know anything about, but it just got the Social Impact Award at a film festival, and it's got like about 1 million views on YouTube, the trailer anyway. And like Chris says this quote here from, he says, while I'm disappointed that the California bail industry will continue to reap hundreds of millions of dollars in profit annually on the backs of legally innocent poor people, I stand with the activists who believe that Proposition 25 would have exchanged the use of money bail for a system that uses racially biased risk assessment tools and gives judges nearly unlimited discretion to incarcerate. I am hopeful that the activist community can reassemble and continue the pursuit of eliminating cash bail in California, while also ensuring that its replacement doesn't set up a system that allows judges to deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without the due process of law. So I kind of want to check out this trailer. I was gonna try to watch it before our meeting today, and I just totally spaced. But I put the link in our chat, and I think I think it's Yoshanda and I were talking about wanting a positive note in this book and how heavy this last chapter was in terms of the density of it and the density of the facts and just the just the sadness of it all, the numbers of the Black men that are just like on the grist. But this kind of thing to me is hopeful, just someone who is a Black male who doesn't fit any kind of stereotype. Not that, we can't all fall and have mistakes, but he doesn't, and that he's reaching back to address an issue like this, the cash bail system, and kind of uncovering as a journalist, is because even in the media today, journalism and media is taking a lot of hits from people. People kind of very cavalierly talk about how, the journalists are perpetuating this image in the media, da 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 da. And so it's nice for me when I see someone doing something that's positive, that's shining a light on something maybe that people don't know about. And I see 1 million views on the trailer, and I know this is probably going to be screened at a lot of film festivals. And you know what I mean? It makes me feel like that is part of the
Right.
change,
Right. That's true. I'm a member of the ACLU, and they've been doing a lot of been pushing a lot of effort for cash bail reform. And it's been really good in the Atlanta metro area because Keisha Lance Bottoms got behind that effort too. Because of course you see a lot of situations where people continue to be incarcerated for long periods of time through no really fault of their own, except the fact that they're not able to pay $500 to bond themselves out, where Caucasian people, you can see, get out on their own recognizance just by signing their signature on a piece of paper and getting a court date to come back. So yeah, these efforts are really ongoing throughout the US, and I think that has been really something that has really held poor people down. And we saw that also with the Khalif Browder situation, where you just don't have the money, and you're stuck there, and looking at how long it actually takes people to go to trial or to get a trial date, and they have to stay in there for that period of time. If you had a job,
that's over.
Had kids, you've now lost custody of your kids. If you had a home, you can't make payments on
that. Yeah, you got frozen at the end, but you said if you have a home, you can't make payments on that.
Right. So you're stuck in this cycle just because you're poor.
Right. Was that the case you were referring to, the guy on Netflix that you said you couldn't watch it, or is that something else?
No, that I can't watch that or the Central Park 5, and there's a new one.
Okay.
About this other guy, but it's just hard for me. I'm a big empath, so those types of things are just hard for me to watch.
I hear you. Yeah.
Well, no, what's the name of this documentary talking about that's on Netflix? Not the Central Park 5, because I know that's, well, I know what it's about, but I'm not gonna watch that either.
Yeah, this is let me see. It's one that there's a Khalif Browder story.
Now, Khalif Browder, is he the guy that was from Brooklyn that was tossed in Rikers Island for no reason and committed suicide?
Yeah, ended up committing suicide.
Oh,
and
Lord.
Then
I don't want to see that.
I just saw that other one. Hold on, let me see if I can find the one I was just talking about. I just saw it on Netflix. It's like the banner on Netflix right now.
Yeah, it's the one they're promoting.
Let's see. Trial 4.
The sort of the feeling in the city, because
that's the name of it. Trial 4.
Okay. I saw that.
Yeah, Trial 4.
Yeah. Yoshunda, I was gonna wait to tell you this in private, but I'm gonna go ahead and tell you. Yoshunda, let me ask you a question. Do you you recording this too? Do you know any martial
Do what?
Do you know any martial arts? Can you fight? Do you know jujitsu?
Do I know any martial?
Do you know?
No.
I think
No, I know street fighting.
the reason I asked is because you're such a strong individual, and you are relentless when it comes to your freedom fighting, and you have to understand the type of consequences that can bring. Not that that's your fault. You're fighting for the right things, but you want to be careful because certain people, especially some of the people that you are arguing with, and certain people, if they're given the opportunity to take you out, they'll take it with no hesitation.
Well,
Listen,
I would just look. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. What people don't realize, if people don't realize this a lot, I always, especially when I'm at home.
Uh-oh, she froze.
Identify themselves or make themselves visible and known. But trust and believe, there's always somebody watching my back. No matter what meeting I'm going to, no matter what I got going on, there's always somebody watching my back.
All right.
So you don't have to worry about that at all.
But still, make sure that you have some type of weapon.
And a lot of people don't know. Right. A lot of people don't know. I'm also a veteran. I'm former military too. So I'm just gonna leave it at that.
All right.
I'm protected at all times. I'm protected at all times. Just know.
Military. Were you in the Army?
I'm protected at all times. Just know. Oh. I like a lot of big toys. So understand that.
I was just gonna ask you if you had some big toys, but you answered my question.
I don't like them. I gotta play a more peaceful role. I don't like the big toys.
And it's crazy that I'm asking you this because I don't like fighting. I can count on one hand with fingers left over how many fights I've been in my whole life.
Oh wow.
Now arguments, and you know how certain arguments you can get into that can escalate the fights. Now I've been in a bunch of those, but never any fighting.
Man, I grew up fighting in the hood. Please, that was like almost a weekly thing. Whether it was boys or girls, that was like a weekly thing. Right.
It's just a matter of being careful because you have to understand there's certain people. Because I was browsing one of the bookstores and I just picked up this white supremacist group. And you know how when you look at books that have certain photos, and I just happened to see them in the middle of the woods with armed rifles just practicing shooting. I'm just thinking to myself, they're being taught and trained how to kill you. Police officers learn jujitsu. They're trained a certain way where they can disarm or where they can use certain tactics on people, whether legally or illegally.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm considering doing, because I looked at this MMA place, I think I'm gonna sign up. Because I've always been fascinated with the martial arts, and I've always wanted to learn. I've always liked Jim Kelly and especially Wesley Snipes. So I'm considering learning.
But yeah, don't look. I love you being concerned, but trust and believe I'm going to be fine. I believe.
Because I was thinking about that, and then and then the Donald Trump, the rant.
Come on, the video.
Yeah. Although, no, I'm just saying that you are asking for it when you do stuff like that.
Tell you, there is nothing or no one that could ever.
Oh man, it's breaking up.
Oh,
I couldn't ever live that way, and definitely not living in fear. But yeah, just know, I you don't have to be worried. I promise you, you don't have to be worried. You don't.
All right, I'm not worried. It's just
Look,
something that
look,
I thought
I've
about.
had, look, DeAndre, I've had to explain to some people who you were with us just talking in the parking lot. So they're like, is this dude cool? Yeah, he cool. Okay. So I'm telling you, don't worry.
Got you.
Don't worry at all. Don't worry. Oh man. Um, oh, one of the other things I want to talk about, and this is so funny because when I was uploading one of our videos from the last meeting, I came across two videos that I did about these gang affiliation charges that they were pushing. And this was like in 2017. And a lot of people were buzzing recently about our governor, Brian Kemp, implementing these gang affiliation charges recently. And I was like, dang, I was talking about this like 3 years ago and completely forgot about it. But one of the things she talked about in the book on page 295 was pilot programs like Operation Ceasefire and Oakland's Lifeline program, which reached out to gang members and offered them jobs and opportunities rather than prison time. If they cease their criminal activities. And then it helped to dramatically reduce the violent crime rates. Mm-hmm. And she said, when given a choice, most people are going to choose to work to support their families and live without fear or harm or violence, given the chance. And that was one of the other things I was trying to explain to some of our people who were making comments saying that, gangs are I'm done. I'm not saying anything else because every time I start talking, I get cut off.
Well, I mean,
Somebody's trying to say.
oh man.
Right?
Well, you were on page.
I've never had issues with my internet like this. It's insane.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. Well, I kind of got to sign off a little bit early tonight. I got to call my little mama
crazy.
back.
I can't get one word in.
We started
Oh,
the new
man.
next
This
week.
is crazy. Yeah. I'm excited about that one too.
Okay.
I still got the new.
Okay.
Crap, since we keep getting cut off. So I think we could just say that something that I was trying to allude to earlier that she talked about was, lower class whites. And like I said before, when she says, if we want to do more than just end mass incarceration, if we want to put an end to the history of the racial class in America, we must lay down our with people of all colors who are not content to wait for change to trickle down and say to those who would stand in our way, accept all of us or none. So basically, like we were talking about before, we've been offered as affirmative action and other things, to satisfy us for the moment, but not really making real valid change. And it's going to have to be a revolutionary movement, basically. As Dr. King said, mass mobilization, not of Black people, as well as poor whites. And even now, as well as Latino people, because we're all fitting into this same category and they're all trying these same divide and conquer strategies over and over again with us. And we're the ones that are suffering.
Right. That's true. I agree.
So I was disappointed. I thought she was going to have all the answers.
I thought she'd have a couple.
But this right. This problem is just such on a mass scale that there are no right or wrong answers.
Yeah. There are no, it's not an easy fix. It's not an overnight, I think the system took a lot of years to build and it's going to take a lot of years to slowly try to get it, to a more equitable level or a more humane level. To restructure it. I think, there's so much going on in the world too, that I think that just priority wise, this isn't a lot of people's priority right now, if it's not affecting them personally. You have things like COVID and elections and people losing their jobs and, climate change and whatever else, you know what I mean? So I think that it's kind of like the tier of what people are really concerned about. And as far as they're concerned, I don't think a lot of people would think that this is something that needs to be, a movement right now, if it's not affecting them. So I think it's going to take some time and we're going to have to see the country shift, I think, in other ways before it comes back. Not that we shouldn't do anything, like I said, but you know what I mean? I think it is going to take some time to see change. I don't think it's hopeless, but I think it's going to take some time.
Right. I was just reading an article about how people were talking about how Joe Biden is going to go back and revamp the civil rights division that Trump completely almost eradicated. So I think we could start seeing some initiatives that emerge there.
Yeah.
I guess we can all be optimistic because it's a lot of doom and gloom.
Yeah,